Now we're going to look at the value chain and its applicability for innovation and strategy. The value chain is an idea that was developed by Michael Porter, an economist, a Harvard economist, who has written about this idea, where value is part of the process that happens in the marketplace. The value chain helps identify value created in each stage of the process for developing a raw material into a commercial product or an innovative product. And the value chain actually helps identify overall industry attractiveness. And what we mean by industry attractiveness, we mean the places where an innovative idea might be applicable and might have opportunity. And what we do is use the value chain to exploit gaps that can reveal innovation opportunities. So we're going to talk about what the value chain is. We're going to look at the value chain and see how it relates to revealing innovation opportunities. Porter's 5 competitive forces involve these 5 points. They are forces in the marketplace, and they have to do with how competitors compete with one another and how organizations choose to compose their strategy. First of all, the force of bargaining power of suppliers. Suppliers set prices, they provide things in a timely way or maybe not in a timely way, and they're not always readily providing those supplies that are necessary for organizations, but that is a force. Barriers to new entrants. The forces of existing firms, we call them incumbent firms, ones that are already there, are really creating barriers to new organizations coming in, perhaps those with new innovations. The bargaining power of buyers. This is the fundamental element in the marketplace. What you pay, what you're willing to pay for a product or service is your bargaining power for you as a buyer. The substitutability of alternative products. What happens if an alternative product is available? And if that alternative product is the same thing but at a slightly lower price, or if it does the same thing in a better way. So that's substitutability of an alternative product. And finally, the rivalry of industry competitors. Those are the competitors in the marketplace. Those are the organizations that are producing things that your organization might produce, and they're competing with you for the same customer or user. So this is a look at how the 5 forces kind of fit together. You notice in the center, we have the industry competitors, and there's rivalry and there's competition between them. But then the 4 other forces influence how that rivalry and that competitiveness occurs. On the left, you see the bargaining power of suppliers, and they affect not just one competitor, but all the competitors who are using that source of supply. On the bottom, substitutes, the threat of substitutes for other products or services that might be different than what the competitors in the middle are offering. On the right-hand side, the bargaining power of buyers, what you as customers, what we as customers do, and how we behave and how we make choices about what we buy. And finally, potential new entrants on the top. There's always new organizations, new entrepreneurial ventures, new ideas, people who have new innovations who are coming into a marketplace, and they're threats to the existing competitors who are there in the middle. So what the Porter competitive model does, it actually helps break down the industry segments into logical parts. And what we'll see is how those different parts form a value chain. And what the model does is it provides an understanding of the structure of an industry's business environment, how it competes, who it competes against, what it needs to for pieces and supplies and services to produce what it produces. And it provides an understanding of the competitive threats in an industry. And it also allows you to analyze them for opportunities and put them back together in some kind of a strategy. So the model is a tool, and it's just one tool, but it's a very formidable tool, and one that's been used by many, many organizations. So what we're going to do is look at how you can find opportunities in the value chain. You know, we talk about developing innovative opportunities as ideas and bolts of lightning, or research and development, or people in a laboratory come up with breakthroughs, scientific breakthroughs, or all these things are possible ways in which people can come up with an opportunity. But one of the very, very fundamental ways to see innovation opportunity is to look at the value chain and understand where opportunities might show up. So you can track an innovative idea for a new product or a service in the value chain, from its origination all the way to customer satisfaction. And so we're going to take a look at that. So this is one example of what I would call a generic value chain. And it's generic in the sense that the figures at the top, we start with the technology, there's the formation of some product design, there's some manufacturing of that product, there's some marketing of that product, there's some distribution of that product, and finally, once it's in the marketplace, there is some service of that product, or maybe we're talking about a service, and indeed, there is service of a service. And so what you see here is for a technology, there are all kinds of different factors that technology would influence. There are factors that influence, likewise, product design, physical characteristics, the quality of it, the functionality of it. And in manufacturing, you're going to need to have raw materials to manufacture. You're going to have a procurement process to get those raw materials. You're going to have to integrate those raw materials into some production. And then you're going to have to assemble things. So there's a lot that goes on in each one of these steps. In marketing, you're going to have to set prices. You're going to have to do advertising, promote. You're going to have people out there selling. You're going to have to package things. You're going to have to brand things. All of these things happen in the marketing stage of the value chain. In distribution, now that you've got all these products stored somewhere, you have to get them out there. And you have to keep an inventory of what you've got. You might have to warehouse them. You certainly got to transport them. You have to have channels, places where you can deliver these products and services to your customers. And you have to have some way of integrating all these distribution processes. And finally, service happens is the last part of the value chain, where once a customer or a user has your innovative product or service, you might have a warranty. You might have dealers that are providing that innovative product or service to the marketplace, and you have to support those dealers. You have to have some pricing control of what you have. You have to maintain availability of, let's say, new products or fixes to that product or modifications to that product. And likewise, you're going to have to involve some pace of speed and efficiency for how you do that. So let's take a look at a couple of different types of value chains. In manufacturing, any manufacturing industry, and this would apply pretty much to any manufactured product, there is some research and development that happens. There is some engineering design of that product. There's a production and manufacturing of it. There's the marketing of it. There's the sales and distribution and service. And so you can see that these stages pretty much match what is a generic value chain. But for any manufacturing industry, let's say an automobile industry, you can look at all of these steps in the value chain that apply in some large-scale thing. Large-scale manufacturing of, let's say, home appliances, the same would happen. In another industry, the retail industry, there's a slightly different value chain. Nevertheless, there is a connected value chain here. Something happens with selecting a vendor or sourcing or getting let's say, the parts to a product or the product itself. So we could say in a retail industry, let's say even like a grocery store, there is selecting a vendor. Whole Foods has to go out and get their produce. They have to go out and get their canned goods. They have to go out and get their dairy. They have to go out and get their seafoods. So they're sourcing and selecting a vendor. Then they buy. They select and then they buy. And then they have inventory. All the grocery stores have inventory, and they basically are the ones who are managing where their stores are, where their storehouses are, and then they distribute that. A store like Safeway, for instance, has huge inventory management challenges and huge distribution challenges. And then you look at how retail stores operate their individual store outlets. And so let's say any grocery store has to actually manage that outlet. They have to then market and sell the goods and services that they have. In the case of a grocery store, it's all the food items and grocery items that they have. So that's an example of a retail industry value chain. So now we're going to look at a value chain with a little more complexity. Again, this is sort of generic. And what we see are down at the bottom are what we would call primary activities. And at the top, we have what we call supporting activities. Those supporting activities support all of the different basic activities in the value chain. So you start with, on the bottom, inbound logistics. So this is where you get the material that you need to create your product or your service. Your operations is where you compose or you design and you construct and you build and you manufacture the product or service that you're offering. Outbound logistics are ways in which you get it out of your production source, your factory, and you get it out into the marketplace. Marketing and sales, again, are ways in which you can expand your ability to reach customers and users in the marketplace. And then finally, the service stage, where you service the products and services that are already out there and ensure that you maintain trust and credibility and reliability of what it is that you're offering. So those are the primary activities down at the bottom. And across the top, all of these things that are associated with support activities, they support all of the functions down at the bottom. So procurement supports all those functions, technology development, human resource management, how you manage your human capital in an organization, and the firm infrastructure, the physical infrastructure of the plant or the store that you have. So this is, again, a standard construction of a value chain, a very common way in which this is portrayed in the business world. And so it's a way of thinking about steps in a process that lead to, from idea on the left-hand side to satisfied customer on the right-hand side. So an example of this in a complex way is the property and casualty industry value chain. So you can see any of you who have car insurance or perhaps life insurance, or some of you may have home insurance, some of you may have renter's insurance, but these are the kinds of things that that kind of an organization would go through to create its value chain. So you start with policy rating. Some people are going to be rated more favorably on policies, and some are going to be rated at a more risk level. Then you underwrite and you invest. You find capital to ensure that you have not only are you collecting premiums from people for insurance, but you're getting venture capital and investment so that in case you have some kind of a disaster, like a hurricane or something where you have property insurance claims, you have an ability to withstand that. Then you have outbound logistics. What are those? Those are places where you have agents or places where there are interactions with customers. And there's the selling of the insurance policy, the renewal of the insurance policy, the management of it, and the advertising and marketing and sales. All those things happen. And then yes, you've got all those things, but what happens when there's a claim? Well, that's the service end of things. So you settle claims and you manage loss control and you adjust your rates accordingly. So the value chain starts with figuring out how you're going to construct a policy, how you underwrite it, how you deliver it, how you sell it, and then how you handle the claims of servicing your customers. So again, it's a value chain. It starts with an idea, and it starts with a way in which you compose your idea, and it ends with servicing users and customers in the marketplace. Here's another look at the value chain, but it's a slice of the value chain that we're looking at from the perspective of where technologies show up. So you can see, and what we're leading to is the idea that technologies are actually going to be influential in revealing opportunities for innovations. And so as you see, in inbound logistics, transportation technology, materials handling technology, storage and preservation technology, communication technology, all these things have an influence on the early stage of the value chain. Then you have basic processes and operations, and I won't go through these in every detail, but then you have outbound logistics where you have transportation technology, where you have marketing and sales, and service. So now, let's look at some value chain tactics. We've looked at how the value chain appears. Now, what is it going to do for you? So the one thing you have to remember in the value chain is that customers will pay for things that are of value to them. And any good strategy maximizes the value-added activities that actually you can find in the value chain. And if you can eliminate as many factors and forces in the value chain as possible that don't add value, that will make your operation and your product and your innovative service much more appealing. And third, make sure that each step or each function in your organization's value chain is aligned with the value objectives of your customer. So you really have to be in tune with what your customer is looking for. And in every step of the value chain, you can align that function with the interests of your customers. So what we're showing here is something that we'll post as a file on site, but it's an exercise that you can think about how to map the innovation opportunities in any organization's value chain. So with an understanding of the value chain, starting with an idea or the inbound logistics or whatever it is on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side is customer satisfaction, user need satisfaction. If you can fill in the blanks of what it is that's going on in your organization or any organization that you're analyzing, what are the steps in the value chain? You can map those out and then begin to ask yourself, what are the innovation opportunities in each of those steps? Because there will be some. And so this is an organized way in which you can look at this and consider ways in which you can find innovation opportunities in a value chain. So in summary, when we talk about the value chain, we have to understand that the value chain actually represents how incremental value is added each step of improvement in a product or service. And so it is a step-by-step process, and it reveals in each of those steps, it reveals some kind of an innovation opportunity. And potential innovation opportunities actually reside between each of the steps in the value chain. And so that's the place that you want to look for them.